of Southern California with his residency in adult psychiatry at Langley Porter Neuropsychiatric Institute, Department of Psychiatry. Dr. King holds numerous positions in numerous recognized affluent circles. Without further ado, may we welcome our speaker, Dr. Richard King.
Thank you for your lovely invitation. Thank you, Black Media, for inviting me. And thank you, brothers and sisters, for coming out on a cold Saturday night. But it's going to be warm in here. It's going to be sweet in here. Not because of me, but because of us. Not because my particular words. I just hope to be a doorway tonight. Hope the Spirit bless me with His presence to share with you. And I hope that in our collective sharing of ideas tonight, we'll walk away from this place with something more than we came here with. I've been blessed in the past 7 months with crisis. I didn't understand the crisis. Something just took me and set me down. For 7 months, I have not been in my usual travel mode, hopping on planes. I tried to explain this to my dear wife, and she has a responsibility known to my children. And they said, my children bared with me. My wife bared with me, too. She gave me words of hot encouragement to pay those bills. But she put up with me, as sisters knowingly do. They want to keep you on focus, but they support the program. Now, they'll tell each other that when you get to that brother, you got to, hey, brother, stand up. Kind of. But I appreciate that. I hope I grow wise with each moment. But in the course of those 7 months, I have lived in the library. I've worn that photocopy machine out. I got all my quarters and my nickels and my dimes. So I'm brought a little bit of the harvest here tonight. And that added on to my discussions with brothers who I've met today, I think I feel a tree growing even greater. So bear with me. Let me give you just an outline. The brothers and sisters have told me that you may even indulge me with a long evening. So feel free to leave at whatever time you choose, because this might be a long evening. It might. I hope the time passes quickly, that you feel it was just, oh, goodness, you mean 2 hours, 3 hours have passed? Don't feel that you have to stay. You got things to do. You got to go take care of your business. And for those who are able to stay, it doesn't mean anything less or greater if you have to leave. But I'm prepared to go all night long. So let me just kind of go on with it now. This question, melanin, I was on Sister's radio show last night, and she was so kind a host to put up with me and take me through this. And we started off with a comment, and this phrase kept repeating itself again and again and again. So when I hear those whispers, they keep whispering like a little faint wind. And then through experience, I think I have learned to, hey, something else is talking. So check it out. The comment was, she asked the question, well, what about this thing with the ozone layer, and how much light can black people tolerate as compared to people? So I went into my usual technical discussion, filling up space. And the truth was, hey, brother, come on, let's get to the point. Got to focus, you know. And as we went through that, I think at some point the truth jumped out and says, you know, the truth is the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. So I had to back up And I just jumped out. And we just kind of rushed on to something else there. So then I recall that it wasn't but 2 months ago I'm lying on my couch. Everybody's asleep in the house. And this is one of these cable network programs that's talking about fertilization. So, oh, this is a pretty good program showing you visually the fertilized egg move out of the sister's fallopian tube and before it anchored into the wall of the uterus. And do you know what the name of that fertilized egg was? Blackberry. Oh yeah, the black of the berry. The sweet of the juice being life itself. Now in the technical world, and this not the technical, because the technical world is the cosmos. That's the real world. These books that I have behind me is a little slice of an instant of time in which somebody has got a way of trying to write something down, but that's the real technical world. Sun, moon, and stars. But in this little political program that we live in now, they call the blackberry the morula, M-O-R-U-L-A, and it means blackberry. It is a blackberry because it's black. Now, he may want to call himself Yellow Boy. If you are a human, you start from a blackberry, showing the ancestry of all life. When the mother's egg originates in her fallopian, in her ovaries, before she is even born, when the father's spermatozoa originates in his testicles before he is born, do you know where those cell lines come from? From the infant's pineal gland. That's a blackberry. Then in the formation of that infant, in the first week of life, as that ball of cells, that mother's egg meets that father's sperm, both of them containing black stuff. The Africans didn't call it melanin. That's a Greek name. Africans call it Kim. Kim. K-M. And they pictured it as a piece of wood burnt at the end. Now we're getting deep. A piece of a tree. The symbolism of it. A tree of life burnt at the end. Doesn't mean burnt up. It means infused with spirit. Infused with life from another realm. Life being so intense, it turns black, not because it's being burned, because it is being raised up. It's being raised to a higher plane. So we get away from a other kind of notion. But notice, here we are, this fertilized egg, fertilized ball meets, both of them containing Kim. They meet, they become one. That's heaven. We have, at that moment when they become one, we have an opening of a cosmic gateway. That's a transcendent time. Now, melanin, or Kim, better yet known, let's just step back for a minute. Let's play with this. Let's not play. Let us allow it to play with us. The name Kim, black. We notice its location. If you walk into the temple of Abydos, where Sirius was worshipped once a year, we came back to where his head was buried. There are three major divisions: the outer courtyard, the middle courtyard, and the inner chambers. As you go from the outer courtyard, where the general public were given admittance to, everybody, you pass through the gate, the door, and if you look, that door has a left pillar and a right pillar and an archway. But look down. Look down when you walk through that gateway. That threshold, the bottom of the doorway, is Kim. It's black. It's made out of rose granite, black with flecks of red, to show life coming through from one dimension into another. As life passes from the spirit world into the material world, as life passes from, in that fertilized egg, from the spirit world into the material world, to put life inside of the great African woman's heaven, her womb, coming through a black door. As you walk from the middle courtyard to the inner courtyard, again you walk through a gateway. Left pillar, right pillar, archway, and down below, threshold, and again you see a black threshold made from rose granite with flecks of red. Take yourself now and transport yourself from Abydos to Giza. Walk inside the Great Pyramid and go up to the highest chamber, the ultimate gateway, and you'll walk into that same all black stone again. The king's chamber being made all four walls, ceiling and floor, from rose granite with flecks of red. Again showing a doorway leading to from the physical world to the spirit world. So these are things that are showing us the lectures written not by me, hardly me, not by any human. This is written by a supreme being itself, in the flesh of time, in the flesh of space, throughout the universe. Melanin is the black pen of God, the doorway to which God force moves. So for someone to step back and say, if you're black, get back, was a crazy sucker. That's somebody who is plain just dumb. By my definition, any definition, a person who is psychotic, a person who does not deal with reality. Now that's a universal reality of what the doorway that life passes through throughout all of the stars and planets and galaxies of the universe, let alone America, let alone Europe. And you're going to tell me that that common denominator throughout all of the universe, you are going to say is a sign of inferiority? You're psychotic. You're crazy. So that's a psychotic. That is a crazy man. Ain't dealing with no reality. Something so fundamental as that. Fundamental. That's the bottom line of life. And you're going to try to dismiss it as a sign of being inferior. That's a crazy tricker. No, it's not even a trick. It is just crazy. Crazy behavior. The thing that you could get away with it is not even worth a breath. So let's not dwell upon that poor soul who's poverty-stricken and who thought that he or she could play a trick and expect it to last but a minute. Because the records, I don't care how many, and we'll talk about some of the libraries that may have been partially destroyed. I don't care how many books were burned. You burned all the Aztec libraries and the Inca libraries and some of the Kemetic libraries. You stole those and put them in the core of your Vatican. Hey, look, just get out your microscope. Look at the human cell. Follow fertilization and development. And the game is over. Real quick. If I take that same person who tells that lie, and if I take my knife my scalpel, or my blade, whatever you want to call it. And I give them a little touch-up job real quick. A few little quick strokes of love. And release them to a happier experience. Release them from their pain. So I do one of those kind of quick moves and do as the Africans call it, sacrifice. If I do that kind of move, and I will see that I don't care how old your skin may be, how red it may be, how yellow it may be, I'm going to find a black man inside. I might find a crazy black man. But it's not going to be no blonde, blue-eyed madness inside. There's going to be some blackness in your brain, in your eye, in your ear, in your heart, in your nerves, in your lungs. We're going to find a massive amount. But then, bringing us back to the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice, if I find that blue black man and that brown black man, especially that black man, and look at and that woman, especially that sister, if I look at her skin, because the largest amounts of melanin, sister tried to get me to make it, she wanted me to make it straight. Now, where is most melanin located? I said, oh, it's all over the body, all brand, blah, 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 blah. I was just skipping along. He said, brother, come on, just make the key points, please. And so I heard her remarks, and it stuck with me thereafter. So now I'm trying to do right by it. And it, in fact, is the majority of the melanin is present in the skin, of course. The skin is the largest organ in the entire body. The skin is the first eye of any life form. We see with our skin. Now, the very advanced Europeans will say that there's a first eye, a second eye, and a third eye, and a fourth eye. The first eye is the skin. The second and third eyes are the two lateral eyes, and the fourth eye is the pineal. And what the advancements will say, the skin is the first one. And the melanocyte that is present in the skin is a heavy number. Well, let me just kind of back up. I have some slides which we'll touch. I'm trying to just lay a groundwork. The study of melanin did not begin with Mr. European. Say that again. The study of melanin did not begin with Mr. European. No way, shape, or form. We've already given you the name Kim as it was given by ancient Kamites. But let's go beyond ancient Kamites. Let's deal with the concept of the black dot. And then we will really get another little version of it. In the book, The Signs and Symbols of Primordial Man by Albert Churchward, and about the latter end of the book, there is a reference to the name Kui-Lan, K-H-U-I. And this is the name, there's a hieroglyph from ancient Africa around the Great Lakes region. Now, there are two mountains of the moon. There's an eastern mountain of the moon and a western mountain of the moon. Now, this gets way deep now. So you want to read another book called by a very racist author named Jean Haley called Pygmy Katabu. But you take your net and you pull your pearls out of the mud. You go fishing. Bear a little pain, but you create a treasure. And so, of course, we write our own books later on, or maybe discover them. But notice this. In that book, it talks about the Mountain of the Moon, which is Kilimanjaro in the east, and the 7 mountain peaks of Mount Kilimanjaro, or Mountains of the Moon, in the Mount Rwenzori mountain range in what is now Uganda, around Lake Mwanza, misnamed Lake Victoria. This is the African Holy Land. This is the African Holy Land. Why is it holy? It is holy because that was the land of the double shade. That's the place where humans sprang up out of the ground. That's where the humans first emerged on this planet. And if you read in another book that's called The Ancient Egyptian Mysteries by Rudolf Steiner in his Germanic lectures in the year 1908, you will hear that the human life was the first life on the planet. All other life descended from humans. And that life, human life, was on this planetary thing before it even became a planet, billions of years ago. It coexisted in the light. It was light emanating in light prior to the separation of the sun from the earth, prior to the separation of the moon from the earth. After the sun had already separated out from the earth, and then the moon later separated out from the earth. So those are things to get into. Nonetheless, coming back to this point, Kui land, it is a name formed by three axes, or double axes, two pyramids turned on the end, pointing towards the tip, with 8 circles going around it, with a black dot in the center of each circle. That same concept of a circle, a black dot, is the African name for sun god Ra, the sun. So that's another key point. But guess what? In humans, we have inside of us a thing that is known as, guess what? Black dot. The name, dot, locus, Sirius, Sanskrit for black. It's not because the Aryan invaders of ancient Dravidian land or India were the ones who first did the anatomy. They stole the name Sirius from the Ethiopians, who were there before them. This black dot is the uppermost in a chain of a black nerve tract that runs through the core of your brain, from the middle of the brain down into the spinal column. And that is true of any animal that has a backbone. That locus cerealis, that black dot, is the same thing that puts a nerve into your pineal gland, your third eye. That black dot is the same thing that helps you to turn on to dreams. Let's step back on dreams. I see a room full of traveling people. About traveling men, I talk about a traveling nation. Because it is your blackness that allows you to fly at night, to physically to leave your bodies and to go into other realms and to come back home again. The statement of slavery, the statement of the crazy boy, is his envy of how far you can travel and who you can talk to. Can you imagine the kings and queens being hoodwinked into thinking that they're second best, yet as soon as they close their eyes at night, they're back home again? Yet they have a fleeting memory of when they awaken the next day. And they say, I wonder, is that real? Can I really be that great? Am I that beautiful? This thought that I have, is that really a creative thought, or is that just crazy thought? Girls, stop thinking you can't be that. Boy, you can't do this, you can't do that, after you have just left the universal college of life on who knows what planet in what galaxy. Doctor, can you talking crazy? I'm just talking real. I talked to Brother tonight, and I said, well, hey, I can be a little more real tonight, can't I? We're going to go on with it now. It is said that these astral realms, and you'd want to read another book by Ledbetter on the astral body, which talks about how you leave the 7 astral realms. You'd want to read books by Cosmic Fire by Alice Bailey, but in particular, get out your copy of the Coming Forth by Day book. Get out your copy of the Gods Egyptians by Budge and read up on, or we have these 2 books back here, which I hate to push my own little thing, but in the book called Black Light, there's an article in there on the subject of the kinetic images of light, which reviews the 3 phases of sunlight the 3 phases of moonlight. And you will read about one of the, of course, the phases of moonlight were governed not by the male principle, but by the female principle. So it was the goddess of the rising moon, the goddess of the full moon, and the goddess of the setting moon. Now, it often is shown in Kemetic literature how it was Tahuti who was the god that was revered for moonlight. But you got to realize, Tahuti is shown as sitting down writing the book of life, but he's only writing what he was told to write by his queen. Painful thing for me to say, but it's the truth. Still trying to work with it. I got all my degrees. Just sit. I'm speaking to you, boy. Listen to me. And when you realize that her power to speak, because of her own special powers, is the way that nature designed it, and that God designed it. So you just may as well just shut up. Ain't none of your business. Get in line and try to go with the flow. Not try, must go with the flow, or be removed. So that's it. Now we'd hope for temperance, but past that point, as one brother told me some time ago, ain't none of my business. Just go fit into the program. And as I recall with the sisters in my family line, and they've all been thunderous sisters. They didn't just speak. They spoke with thunder. I mean, now I can partially see how they kept this line moving. But again, coming back to the point of Tahuti writing down what his queen told him, Goddess Ma'at told him what to write down. Yes, she did. Goddess Ma'at was the chief judge of justice. She's the chief judge. And she said, I'm not going to put it in the past tense because she's not past tense. She's current tense. These gods that talk about in Kemet did not cease to exist at all. They are immortal. What does that mean to you? They know no such thing as death. Neither do you, in truest sense. But anyway, in the goddess Ma'at is shown to sit in the hall of justice with the 42 judges, each one of them judging a particular attribute, whether you did or did not do this commandment. This is the 42 negative confessions. And each one of them stands for, guess what? One of our ancestors. One of the line of our ancestors. And this hall of justice is in, guess where? Where is this hall of justice located? In the cosmos. Where? In the core of the sun. In the core of the sun. You know the one you see rising? So the light that is put out, this is extremely advanced. That's why I say in the African origins of biological psychiatry, the European is afraid because of his misdeeds, all the hell he's put our people through. He's afraid for the black man to have justice. He said, if I've mistreated him so badly, if I killed and raped his children and his women and him, if I've stolen his knowledge and hidden it, if I've lied and done all these things, he's afraid of retaliation. But even if he wanted to do right, guess what? He even lacks the knowledge that is required to raise you up, sisters and brothers. He doesn't have the advanced knowledge that is required to deal with super advanced parents. He's a child, you're the parent. He rules only because you and I, for whatever reasons it may be, are asleep just now. But guess what? You're waking up. You're waking up. You can feel the stirring. Oh, boy, it's time to get up now. And you hear the scurrying. Oh no, Mama and Daddy's waking up. Oh, I made a mess. I know Mama's going to tear me up. Yes, she will. Oh, what is wrong with my house? And here comes Daddy. Mama, what should I do? Don't even need to ask sometimes. Straighten it out. So here we have this monumental time in history in which there is a wakening up, as Ivan Van Sertima said, after the 500 years. Now check these dates out. And I'm saying all this as a backdrop. We've already go to a slideshow in which we amplify some other aspects. In the book, The Columbus Conspiracy by Michael Bradley, it is made known these critical little facts. These are some nice little facts. On that date that Columbus left to set sail for the Americas, he wasn't discovering a thing. You can't discover somebody, meet somebody waiting you on the shoreline who's more civilized than you are. They've already been there. And there have been multiple travels. That's for somebody else to give lectures about, but multiple travels prior to the time of Columbus. On the day that he left was the same day at which the last African stronghold in Spain peacefully gave the power back to the Spanish. Is there a connection? And in looking at the background of Columbus, you get into a lot of intrigue. He may not have even been in terms of his political, spiritual identity. In other words, he was a person who was part of a group of inner knowers who had been in contact with some suppressed knowledge about the real makeup of the history of Christianity and Islam, and especially Africa. So on that date, that 500-year period, and guess when that 500-year date came to an end? Same day, 500 years later. Guess when it came to an end? The day of the rebellion in April of 1992. The day in which African people around the world, especially in Los Angeles, heard it even happen here in Atlanta, in which they beat down a brother, as we all have seen too many times. You say, I don't have to give you any justice. I'll do what I want. I'll put it in your face. Brother said, yeah, check this out. And moved on him spontaneously and checkmated him real quick. He said, oh, my goodness, Mom and Daddy are waking up. You threw a line in the sand and said, you crossed it. Get back, Jack, right now. So that was a 500-year coincidence. Not a coincidence. It was a date that marks the beginning and the end and standing up. Many things taking place beforehand. But let's go on to a slideshow in which we'll draw out some of the other points. And I brought my little workbooks. So we want to just chew on some melanin facts and chem facts. It can be a very lovely evening. Thank you. Now, again, when the mother's egg is fertilized by the father's sperm, that ball of cells rapidly multiplies. It forms a thing called the pigmented pole. Word pigmented just means what? Black dot. Pole dot. So a black dot formed on the surface of a mother's fertilized egg. And those cells will then, the DNA will then develop into two. It will split apart and form two different poles at each end. Then those cells will divide and then further divide. And again will pass within the first 4 days from the mother's fallopian tube as the black berry, the morula, and then anchor itself to the mother's uterine wall of her life-giving womb, another black dot. Now, while there, the first two hormones that are made when that morally anchors into the wall of the uterus is called a trophoblast. It makes two hormones, human chorionic gonadotrophin, HCG. You know the hormone that you have a pregnancy test? It's actually looking for HCG. The other one is, guess what? Melanocyte-stimulating hormone, the thing that controls black pigment cells. So from day one, blackness is working, directing traffic, building the actual scaffolding and structure of the human body. Again, it is the blueprint. It is directing. It's telling DNA what to do. Melanin dictates to DNA what to do. Melanin precedes DNA. So that early ball of cells invaginates and forms a tube. The tube is called the neurotube. The outer layer around it is called the neural crest. The neural crest, from that originates the things that are later known as the pineal and also the melanocytes. Also from that neural crest region, we also have some other formation of things that become pigment sites in the so-called 12 pigmented brain stems in the brain stem and midbrain. We also have the formation of the optic cup from which the eyes form. But again, the pineal gland originates as these pinealoblast cells, and they later can become pigmented cells as well. The so-called pigmented epithelial cells of the eyes and the pigmented cells of the pineal. And you also find the pigmented cells in the inner ear of the ear itself. You could not see if you did not have melanin in your eye. Not in the outer eye, the iris, but in the inner lining of the eye. You could not hear if you did not have melanin in the inner ear of your ear. The hair cells that line that fluid-filled chamber, the stereocilia, sit over a thing that is called the stria vascularis, and that has melanin underneath. And as those as those hair cells move, as a result of a mechanical force coming through the eardrum and making the middle ears move and putting that fluid into motion, those stereocilia, depending upon where in that chamber those cells move, you have a certain nerve pulse generated that makes up the sound that you actually hear. So that your hearing is dependent upon it passing through that melanin layer. And when you have diseases like vitiligo or albinism, you have defects not only in skin pigmentation, but defects in vision and defects in hearing. Oh yeah, I know why you like that bass tone. I think I do. Because you can hear it. Somebody else just hears noise. Oh yeah, that's what it's about. Yeah, you can rock and roll with it. When it hits you, you feel a tingle in your spine that won't let go. It makes you rise up. Why? From the ear to the pineal gland, right quick. But somebody else, they have a shorter, what we call temporary threshold response period. They hear a sound. It takes a much longer period of time for their sensory apparatus to set up again to get the new sound. But you have a much shorter period of time, and also you can take it. Somebody else might hear it. They have a hard time getting set up for it, but the machine may break down on the other end, and they may get a permanent scar just by hearing certain bass notes. Just by hearing certain bass notes. So here you are moving with that bass, moving it, kicking it, thumping it, moving, dipping and dapping. Somebody else saying, oh, what? And said, no, let's make it a little bit lighter, please. You said, no, bring it on again. I can recall going through school at certain times. I didn't even want to hear the lighter note. I wanted to feel the bass in my chest. I wanted to feel it in I especially wanted to feel it in my bones. I want the bones to tingle. And then I said, oh, now we're getting someplace. I didn't want to think about it. I wanted to evoke me into a trance state, to send me into a clear state of perception. So you're trying to escape. No, I'm trying to get renewed. So anyway, here we have the pigmented layer, and you see these various cells that come out. Swan cells. The swan cells, they originate from pigmented cells. Those are the cells that form the coating on all motor nerves. Do you hear that? The swan cells are cells that form, they're called supportive cells, and they are formed in the core of the brain, and they form the coating they form the myelin coat that is formed over all voluntary nerves. So when you're a young man, a young boy, my little boy has a problem. He likes to lay in bed and drink his fluids at night. And I said, man, not after 9, please. Oh, Daddy, let's just last little bit of apple juice. I'm always giving the entrance at 10 o'clock, my man's swimming. You know that whole story. But I know he will outgrow it because he's going to have more and more of his nerves to become myelinated. Then we'll have more voluntary control. I don't want to petrolize him with fear. I'm trying to make him clean up after, there's no doubt. But the myelin voluntary nerves occur. Now, on the other side, melanin or melanization of nerve tracts takes place even throughout adult life. There are certain nerve tracts in the forebrain that become increasingly more pigmented as you exercise better judgment. What do we mean by that? As you practice the 42 virtue, the negative confessions, as you are more in rapport with the ancestors. You got a blessing. You did well today. Here's your black star. Boom. Here's your black dot. Boom. Raise up. You get another one. Boom. You're growing now. Here's another one. Oh, you missed it, Charles. Oh, and that's not the way. So here we have the melanated nerves, and we're showing the location in the inner ear. The location in the inner ear is extremely important because that's a place where the musicians are going to really focus in more so, or probably know a fair amount already, as to what sounds, what wavelengths of sound activate black people for action. That's a critical scientific discovery that was known in the past, that is being intensely studied now by your musical scientists. By your musical scientists. Certain patterns of sound, not just a note, but the patterns of a note. In looking at the traditional religions, and looking at the things that are called the Ifa, for example, when a certain god is going to be evoked, it's a certain kind of bass pattern of beat that is used, and each one goes with a certain kind of god or goddess. Certain kind of melanin present in the mesentery, the kind of sheet that the intestinal tract lines on. The intestinal tract is deep, 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 deep study. The hormones that are present in the intestinal tract, guess where you find them? In the pineal gland. They are found in the cerebral spinal fluid in the core of the brain, being taken up by the pineal gland to further give, in other words, the food that you take in, be it light or especially physical food, is ultra profound in terms of how it either activates or deactivates the pineal. The timing in which you eat, critical. How often you eat and what you eat, critical. Critical. And so we have, there's certain, some of the enzymes that are used, the intestinal enzyme, for example, and also some of the ones that are involved also in the kidney appear. They are taken up and they appear in concentrations in the so-called cerebral spinal fluid about 5 or 6 times greater. One basal, an intestinal one, I can't recall the exact name, but just this very second. 5 times greater in the cerebral spinal fluid than in blood itself. Now, the cerebral, I'll show you a thing on the cerebral spinal fluid, because the way in which we look at the brain is, again, the way in which the European looks at the brain. And it is helpful for some things, but there's another way to look at it. And the cerebral spinal fluid is a critical way to look at it. Again, the melanin present on the leptomeninges, this is the covering of the brain. Can you imagine that your brain, your black brain, is not just what's inside your skull? Your black brain, my fellow Africans, is your entire body. Your entire body is your brain. And melanin is like, if you will, a computer disk all over your brain. These melanocytes communicate with each other. It doesn't matter if the melanocyte is a brain cell in skin. And they communicate with each other whether they are connected anatomically or not. They communicate because they are able to get in vibe with each other. They communicate by distant electromagnetic fields. They communicate by blood-borne release hormones, growth factors, growth hormones. They communicate by what you believe the so-called T4 cell that's heavily involved with melanocyte. The so-called Langerhans cells that are involved in diabetes, that comes out of a melanocyte. It differentiates out of a melanocyte and travels from the lymph nodes back and forth to the melanocyte, getting its instructions as it goes back. Do you know your blood itself carries melanin? Folks don't have this. They don't have hardly much in the way of circulating melanin. Melanin present inside of blood cells passing through your blood in every organ of your body, be it brain, heart, toe, or finger. You have in these blood cells melanin in black people. And the blacker the berry there, definitely the sweeter the blood. If you don't have much melanin in your skin, then you're losing it in your blood. This is only one example of a theory of what the melanin structure looks at. It's false. Why is it false? First, it's standing still. That's number one. Melanin never but never stands still. It's constantly in motion. Constantly in motion. Always. Why? It's living. It's alive. It's constantly communicating and interacting with all of the forces of life that pass through it. Now, it's also false because there's naturally occurring melanin in living systems and also in things that are outside living systems. As you have chlorophyll in plants, you have melanin in the animal world. The melanin in humans or animal forms is also bound to protein. Protein is another polite name for DNA results and RNA results. The protein component of melanin is different in each location. It's that complex. I said, I thought I knew it. Oh, no, it's too deep for me. It not only is constantly in motion, but its protein carrier is different in each location. So melanin that's present in the brain is different than melanin that's present in the inner ear. It's different than melanin that's present in the pigmented epithelium of eyes and also in the pineal, in be it lung. Here's an old theory. It's long since been outdated. Light. African people, you are super genius minds. Super genius. This is the greatest joke in history, in which the child looked up to his super genius parent and said, "You are illiterate. You can't learn. And the blacker you are, get back." All that I could do with a cracker who tells me that lie is laugh and knock him out and move him real quick, because I don't have no time for that kind of mess. That's a total lie there. Light, reaching the eye. The pineal gland. We'll come to that in a little bit more detail in just a minute. Hypothalamus. Forget about melanocyte-releasing factor. That's since been thrown in disrepute. Melanocyte, melanosomes, those are also points to consider. Now, again, let me give you some references. Now, here are some names you should write down. Do not depend upon Dr. King, because you are a genius, and I will learn from you. I walk to the black media today, and look out. Every place I turn, there was a genius here and a genius there. They were just rapping and talking and lifting me up. All I could do was let my jaw hang down, open my ears up, and start writing. I went in, the brothers picked me up from the airport, and they were dropping down on me deep. I walked in, sister was so kind to me, she dropped information on me. My sister helped me out, she dropped information on me. Now I went inside the beautiful restaurant next door. As I walked in the door, do you know what happened? I hadn't even got 2 feet in the door. The waitress said, Dr. King, aren't you Dr. King? I said, yeah. She said, I was a student in your class at San Francisco State University in my very first class, 1978. I said, ooh, what's happening here, spirits? I said, something's saying wake up time, you know. He says, and didn't you lecture on the black dot then? I said, well, yes. There was the brother, we talked about other things, about people having Henry Majid, Nation of Islam, Massimo 25, Phil Moore, San Francisco. So it just, again, when you find those kind of currents crossing, then you know this is a day to remember. And you try to rise up to that day to do your job. But here we see an example of the Sphinx. If you read, now these are some things to write down. The Journal of Pigment Cell Research. The Journal of Pigment Cell Research. It's in your medical school libraries here, right over there at Morehouse, or the other, medical school. This contains the latest publications on melanin in the world. Take your $10 or $5, get your photocopy card, and go pull out Volume 6. That was this year's. Latest one was in October. Get the latest. I got a whole stack over here. In other words, empower yourselves. Do not be dependent upon anyone. You're that bright. You're that bright. I can't read the names. My sisters, my brothers, you have inside of your mind a infinite mind. If you just read it and sleep on it, when you wake up in the morning, guess what's going to happen? You will have traveled to another dimension, and they will have broken down for you real plain. See, Dr. King, I don't believe that. Try it. Try it. Check it out. Another journal, the Journal of Pineal Research. Now, they're going to play games on this. I'll tell you that up front. They're going to say it's maybe not available. Journal of Pineal Research Reviews. Another, they might play a little game on that, too. But you can get another one called the Journal of Neurotransmission. That's much more widely available, especially 1986. The Journal of Neurotransmission. And the Journal of Cell Research. Journal of Cell Research. These are all, you'll find some sweet references on melanin, on the pineal. But the Journal of Pigment Cell Research, you'll get the abstracts of the last International Pigment Cell Conference held in London just this past few months in '93. And you'll get their abstracts, and there'll be one-page condensation of each of their presentations off the top. And they also try to make them jargon-free, so you can get it off the top. So keep those in mind, please. Also, I have the articles back in the back, the origin of a biological psychiatry, which gives you a lot of information, and especially that is a very jam-packed reference material. And also, I have just 9 copies of the Black Light article, which is an article called the Eye of Peru, which has 243 references up to the year 1992. You know what this is. Need not further comment. It's a Sphinx. What is not shown is the weathering of it by water, which proves that it's older than, you have to ask, well, when did water last fall in Giza? So that's where you date how old these monuments are. Here's the African study of blackness. The black cubit, called the nilometric cubit. This comes from the book Symbol and Symbolic by Swallow de Lubeck. When Africans worked in black stone, they used a special system of linear measurement, not the royal cubit, not the sacred cubit, but the nilometric black cubit. Because they're dealing with life factors between dimensions. Tomb of Ramses VI, from the book Tomb of Ramses VI, showing the solar bark of Ra with the African image of sun god Ra. This is the image of what we knew the phase of the god of the sun to be. This was our image of God. I mean, not the supreme God, but one of the major immortal deities which lives where? In you. In me. Up close. Oh, it's not blind. Of course not. There you are. There you are. There you are. Now, if you see him, if you turn his head around, you would see who? You'd see her. So understand, he was born from not a man. That's not even reality. He's born from what? A blackberry. He's born from a black woman. And clearly, and I'm stressing this point again, I'm trying to come to clarity on this point, being forced to come to clarity. He's also receiving instructions from, guess who? A black woman. This is, of course, this, you know, is the first king unified Upper and Lower Egypt, but that's a certain point in history. We don't know how far back there were other unification events. This is a Anu, a so-called one of the noblemen of Abydos, the same place where the head of Osir was found, was supposedly buried or returned to. These you've seen before. I actually received them from Brother Listerville Middleton, who I think received them from Brother Asa, right here out of Atlanta. So this is again showing the African, where you have the image of the black man of Egypt and the black man of other parts of Africa, and also the European right between the two black men and the Asiatic. That is a brother right inside of his burial coffin. I'm just showing that to show again his face looks like any brother in this audience right now. Any. And showing the difference between what appears on the surface of that coffin. Because it's just like right now, if I get into a Ford, it doesn't mean I look like a Ford. You know, it's just cheaper to buy a Ford than make my own Ford. Pair of Tutankhamun. There's his pineal gland right in the center of his forehead. Side view, Tutankhamun rising out of a lotus flower, lotus blooming. But what about the science, the melanin science behind that number right there? When you dip and you dap, when you're feeling your moves, when you've been studying and studying and studying, and finally it all comes together. When you're back up into a corner, you can't see how you're going to pay this bill and that bill, and you say, what the hell with it? I'm coming out now.